My family always mocked my silly paintings, calling them a waste of time. At my cousin Caroline's engagement party, their sneers only got worse. No one knew that the anonymous artist selling breathtaking pieces online was me. Then, in the middle of the celebration, Caroline's art dealer boyfriend gasped, holding up one of my paintings. "This is yours," he asked. Suddenly, everything changed, and so did I. Ever since I was a little girl, I've loved painting. While other kids were obsessed with sports or video games, I found my escape in colors, brushes, and canvases. I'd spend hours in my tiny bedroom, covered in splatters of paint, trying to bring to life the worlds I imagined. It wasn't just a hobby, it was my passion, my refuge, my voice, but my family. They never understood. To them, art was a frivolous dream, a useless luxury that wouldn't pay the bills or secure a future. My parents, especially, were always practical. "Rachel, you need a real job." They'd say, their voices dripping with frustration and doubt. "You can't live off painting silly pictures." At family dinners and gatherings, I was the joke. Cousins and relatives would smirk and whisper, "When is Rachel going to get serious or still playing with her paints, huh?" Their words cut deeper than any brushstroke. It was as if my dreams were invisible, dismissed, before they even had a chance. Meanwhile, Caroline, my cousin, and constant foil, was everything I wasn't. Outgoing, polished, and confident, she was the golden child in our family's eyes. Caroline was engaged to a wealthy art collector, and suddenly the spotlight was all hers. Her engagement party was the event of the season, and everyone expected a perfect evening, filled with champagne toasts and smiles. Caroline's world seemed glamorous and effortless, especially compared to my quiet struggle. While I was trying to sell paintings anonymously on online platforms, hoping to get noticed without revealing who I was, Caroline basked in praise and admiration, surrounded by luxury and connections. The irony. The paintings Caroline's fiancé adored and proudly displayed were mine, but no one knew. I'd never intended to hide my work, but the fear of ridicule, of being dismissed again, kept me anonymous. Selling art online under a pseudonym gave me a way to pursue my passion without the sting of family judgment. Slowly, my art began to gain traction. People loved the emotion and detail in my pieces, but none of them knew the face behind the brush. The night of Caroline's engagement party, I was both excited and nervous. It was a chance to reconnect with family, but also a reminder of how distant I felt from them. I dressed carefully, hoping to blend in rather than stand out. The grand hall was filled with chatter, laughter, and clinking glasses. The walls were decorated with Caroline's favorite pieces, expensive, so tasteful, and utterly unfamiliar to me. As I looked around, I noticed the subtle glances and whispered jokes about my silly paintings. It hurt more than I expected. My heart ached as I watched Caroline laughing effortlessly with her guests, her engagement ring sparkling under the lights. I wanted to be happy for her, but the feeling of being invisible gnawed at me. Despite everything, I reminded myself why I was there: to celebrate a family milestone, and maybe, just maybe, plant a seed of respect for my art and who I truly was. But little did I know, the night was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would change how my family saw me forever. The moment I walked into Caroline's engagement party, I knew I was stepping into a battlefield. The air was thick with expectation and privilege, a world so far removed from my own quiet struggles. My family's polite smiles barely masked the disdain I felt radiating from them, especially when they glanced at me and then at Caroline, as if I were some embarrassing mistake that they had to tolerate. Within minutes, the snide remarks began. At the crowded buffet table, my aunt nudged a few relatives and whispered loud enough for me to hear, "Does Rachel even have a real job yet? Still painting those childish doodles?" The words stung like icy needles, but I kept my face calm, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me hurt. Later, as people gathered around Caroline, I was mostly ignored, save for the occasional, awkward question about my art. My uncle, who I barely knew, leaned in and asked loudly, "So, Rachel, when will you stop wasting time with those silly paintings and get serious Caroline's fiancé deals with real art, you know?" I wanted to scream, but I swallowed the words and forced a smile. "I actually sell my paintings online," I said quietly, hoping to earn some respect. "They've been doing well." Their eyes flickered with disbelief or amusement, I wasn't sure which. No one asked for details or showed real interest. It was as if my success was invisible, overshadowed by Caroline's glittering engagement and connections. What made it worse was the seating arrangement. Instead of sitting with the adults, I was ushered toward a small table in the corner, the one reserved for kids and less important guests, as if my presence was an afterthought. The cold detachment was almost physical. I sat there alone, clutching my plate, overhearing Caroline's friends laughing and making plans for the lavish wedding. I thought about leaving, but something inside me told me to stay. Maybe, just maybe, I could turn this night around. As the evening progressed, Caroline took the stage to thank everyone for coming. She spoke about love, family, and new beginnings, the perfect speech for someone whose future looked so bright. Afterward, she proudly showed off a new painting that was to be the centerpiece in their shared home. My heart skipped a beat, because the painting Caroline held up was one I had created months ago, a bold, emotional piece full of colors and hidden stories. I had sold it anonymously to a foreign gallery, never expecting it to come back to me like this. The shock was overwhelming. I could hardly breathe as the room admired the painting completely unaware of its true origin. The moment was surreal. Caroline's fiancé, Mark, walked over, eyes fixed on the painting. He whispered something to Caroline, and she nodded, beaming with pride. The gallery manager, standing nearby, looked stunned, his gaze flicking toward me, and then he gasped. That gasp changed everything. Mark, the art dealer, and Caroline's fiancé suddenly turned to me, his voice trembling with disbelief. "Wait, this is your work." The room fell silent. All eyes snapped to me. For the first time that evening, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't the joke. I was the artist behind the masterpiece that everyone admired. It felt like the world shifted under my feet. Mark's discovery ignited a firestorm of reactions. My family's faces paled, shifting from smugness to shock, then to something close to fear. Whispers turned to murmurs, and suddenly I was no longer sitting in the corner. I was at the center of attention. The ridicule, the mockery, the dismissive laughter, they all vanished in an instant. People who had barely noticed me moments before now hovered near, desperate to hear more about my secret talent. Caroline's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating look. Her world built on privilege and status suddenly felt shaky. The cousin she had dismissed was now the star of the evening. I felt a surge of vindication, but I kept my composure. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. The moment Mark Caroline's fiancé and the gallery's art dealer recognized my painting, the atmosphere at the party shifted dramatically. The polite chatter faded into stunned silence as all eyes turned toward me. For the first time, I was not invisible. I was the subject of everyone's attention. And suddenly, their attitude changed like flipping a switch. Mark stepped forward, eyes wide with genuine admiration. "Rachel, I had no idea you were the artist behind this piece," he said, voice tinged with awe. "Your work has been featured in some of the best galleries abroad. Why didn't you tell us?" I swallowed hard. The truth was complicated. I had kept my identity secret for years, fearing judgment and rejection from the very people who were now staring at me in disbelief. But standing there with my family's eyes burning into me, I realized I couldn't hide anymore. "I didn't want anyone to treat me differently," I admitted quietly, "especially not my family." Carolyn's face twisted with something I couldn't quite place. Shock, jealousy, maybe even anger. She stepped closer, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So, all those paintings we've admired, they're yours. Why didn't you ever mention it? Why stay in the shadows?" I looked around. My family, who had mocked and belittled me for so long, now looked uncertain and uncomfortable. The same relatives who asked if I had found a real job were suddenly scrambling to understand what they had missed. My aunt whispered to my mother, "We never knew she was that talented." My mother, usually so stern and critical, looked conflicted. "Why didn't you tell us, Rachel? We could have helped." I wanted to scream that no, they hadn't helped. They had crushed my dreams every step of the way. But I kept my voice steady. Because I didn't want your help. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it on my own. Mark's manager friend, a sharp-eyed woman named Claire, stepped forward. She had been overseeing the gallery's new acquisitions and was the first to recognize the potential for something big. "Rachel, your art is exactly what the contemporary scene needs. There's a fresh, raw emotion here that's rare. We want to offer you an exclusive contract." Suddenly, the party turned into a whirlwind. People who ignored me before now flocked around, eager to talk, to compliment, to connect. Caroline's smug smile faltered, replaced by something cold and calculating. She pulled Mark aside, whispering fiercely. I caught glimpses of their tense conversation as I stood nearby. Caroline's voice low sharp with frustration. "This can't be happening. You promised this would be our moment. She's just a silly painter." Mark shook his head, his admiration for my work evident. "This is real talent, Caroline. We have to support her." Caroline's eyes narrowed. "But this wasn't supposed to be about her. It's my engagement party." Meanwhile, I was approached by relatives I barely knew, suddenly interested in my hidden talent. They asked for stories about my paintings, where I learned to paint, and if I'd consider exhibitions in the U.S. Their tone was different, respectful, almost reverent. Despite the rush of attention, I felt a growing unease. This wasn't just about recognition anymore, it was a battle for power and respect within my family. A fight that felt exhausting. Over the next few days, the fallout from the party unfolded like a drama on a stage. Caroline's smiles at family events became forced. She avoided me in hallways and whispered behind closed doors. I heard rumors that she was trying to sabotage my growing reputation by spreading lies claiming my paintings were plagiarized or that I had somehow cheated my way into the art world. At the same time, my anonymous sales online skyrocketed. Galleries reached out collectors, expressed interest, and invitations to exhibitions poured in. My art was no longer silly paintings. It was a valuable, respected craft. But with success came new challenges. I started receiving cold, cryptic messages, some disguised as congratulations, others as thinly veiled threats. People who once ignored me were now trying to take credit or control my career. The pressure was suffocating. One evening, I found myself sitting alone in my tiny studio apartment, staring at a half-finished canvas. The brushes felt heavy in my hands. I questioned everything. Was all this worth it? Had I traded peace for chaos? Could I truly belong to this world that had rejected me for so long? But then a message popped up on my phone. It was from Mark. "We need to talk. There's an opportunity you can't miss." Reluctantly, I agreed to meet him at a small gallery downtown. When I arrived, Mark was waiting with Claire and a few other influential people from the art world. They laid out a plan to launch my work internationally, offering resources and connections I never dreamed of. It was overwhelming and exhilarating all at once. But Caroline's shadow loomed large. At every step, she tried to undermine me, calling gallery owners, spreading rumors, even confronting me directly at one exhibition opening. "You don't belong here," she hissed. "You're just a hobbyist playing dress-up." Her words hurt, but they fueled something inside me, a determination, not just to survive, but to thrive. With Mark and Claire's support, I signed an exclusive contract that gave me creative freedom and financial stability. I started hosting solo exhibitions, drawing crowds, and praise. Still, family gatherings remained tense battlegrounds. My parents oscillated between reluctant pride and old skepticism. Some cousins embraced me while others stayed cold and distant. The hardest moment came when Caroline confronted me one last time during a family dinner. Her voice cracked with anger and jealousy. "You think you're better than us now? Just because a few strangers like your paintings, you'll never be one of us." I looked her in the eye, steady and calm. "No," I said, "but I don't need to be. I'm proud of who I am, and I don't need your approval anymore." Her face twisted in frustration as the rest of the family looked on, some shocked, others relieved. In that moment, I realized I had won, not because I had proven them wrong, but because I had finally proven myself right. My journey was far from over, but I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I had the strength to face them. Just when I thought the storm had settled, the real game began. Mark's discovery of my paintings had turned the tide, but Caroline was far from defeated. She wasn't going to let me quietly take over the spotlight she believed was hers by birthright. Behind the scenes, Caroline hatched a plan to discredit me. She leveraged every connection she had, family, friends, art critics, even social media influencers, to spread rumors about me being a fraud, claiming my works were copies or forgeries. The whispers grew louder, threatening to undo everything I had worked so hard for. One afternoon, as I prepared for my biggest solo exhibition, yet I received an anonymous email. Inside was a series of photographs, blurry, taken from a distance of me meeting with a mysterious person. The sender claimed I was not who I said I was and threatened to leak the photos if I didn't quit the art scene. My heart pounded. Was Caroline behind this? I knew she had the means, but I refused to let fear control me. Instead, I chose to fight back, not with words, but with undeniable proof. I contacted the foreign gallery that had originally sold my painting. They provided official documents confirming that I was the legitimate artist. I gathered testimonials from collectors, critics, and fellow artists who vouched for my integrity. On the opening night of the exhibition, with the gallery packed, I publicly addressed the rumors. Calm, composed, I told my story about years of hard work, the secrecy born from fear of rejection, and my unwavering passion for art. The crowd listened, captivated. Applause broke out, drowning out the whispers. Meanwhile, Caroline's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. In an ironic twist, it was Mark, the fiancé she had trusted to protect her interests, who delivered the final blow. After seeing the relentless smear campaign, he confronted Caroline privately. "This isn't just hurting Rachel," he said. "It's destroying us all. You've crossed a line." Their argument was explosive. Mark revealed that he was considering breaking off the engagement unless Caroline apologized and stopped her sabotage. Caroline's pride shattered. Word leaked to the family, turning the tables. Suddenly, Caroline was the one, isolated the subject of cold shoulders and whispered gossip. My art flourished. Gallery owners offered lucrative deals, and my name became synonymous with resilience and talent. More importantly, I felt free. Free from the need for anyone's approval, especially my family's. At the next family gathering, the atmosphere was palpably different. Caroline arrived alone, her usual confidence replaced by a fragile veneer. The family avoided eye contact with her, their support quietly shifting toward me. She approached me hesitantly, voice low. I was wrong," she admitted. "You deserved everything, and I was jealous. I'm sorry." I looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Thank you," I said simply. "That means more than you know." From that moment on, the power dynamics shifted permanently. My family no longer mocked my art. Instead, they talked about it with respect, sometimes even pride. But I no longer needed their validation. I had found my own. The final Karma Caroline's wedding, once a dazzling event I had dreaded, became a small, quiet ceremony. Mark and Caroline's engagement ended shortly after, quietly and without fanfare. Meanwhile, I was preparing for an international tour, a dream come true. Standing on my studio's balcony one evening, looking at a city skyline glittering with possibility, I felt a deep sense of peace. I had been laughed at, dismissed, and belittled, but I had turned every cruel word into fuel for my success. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. The days that followed felt like a new beginning. The weight of years spent hiding, doubting, and enduring harsh judgment finally lifted. My art was no longer just silly paintings dismissed by my family. It was a symbol of my resilience and passion. Family gatherings changed too. No longer was I the quiet cousin ignored in the corner. My relatives, who once mocked me, now asked about upcoming exhibitions, eager to learn more about the artist they once underestimated. It wasn't about winning their approval anymore. I had earned my own respect, and that was what truly mattered. Caroline and I found a fragile peace. While our relationship would never be what it once was, the tension eased. I learned to forgive not for her sake, but for my own. Holding on to anger would only chain me to the past. Most importantly, I embraced my identity fully. I signed deals to showcase my work internationally, traveled to galleries I had once only dreamed of, and connected with fellow artists who inspired me every day. Painting was no longer a secret hobby. It was my life's calling. Standing in front of a sold-out exhibition, watching people admire the canvas that I created. With sweat and tears, I realized something profound. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. I didn't need validation from my family or anyone else. I had found it within myself. And that truth made every struggle, every sneer, every doubted moment worth it. Because in the end, the greatest victory isn't revenge. It's becoming the person you were always meant to be.